Wait, some people say you're the best game show host ever. So yeah, I'm teasing. It's true. He's actually pretty good at this. I'm teasing. I'm just jelly. I'm jelly, D. That's what it is. I'm a little bit jelly. No, but how did you, and it's a bit off topic, but how did you get the idea to do that thing? I mean, people really like this show. Like they really enjoy it. I mean, not just that. People are watching the entire show.
Yeah.
And in YouTube world, that's not common. You know what I'm saying? They watch for 2 minutes and go, whatever, and they go someplace else or whatever. But they watch the whole show. I see it in the chat. What made you think to do it this way?
We almost had 20,000 views thanks to you being on last night and the great Lou Perez and my buddy Brent Freeman. I mean, we had a absolutely live crowd last night. And, I thought that the movement needed something different. There's the old joke that, every libertarian has a podcast. And, so I was originally just doing interviews. I started on Spaces and then I moved to live stream. And I was trying to do things differently, but I was also trying to cut through the talking points. And so I came up with gamifying the questions and making them lightning round, yes or no, pick one of these, where I get past their stump speech and I get to actual solutions. Right. And, so I think that's what people want to hear. The joke I always tell is that, Kamala said, you'd ask her a question about the economy and she'd say, well, I was born a middle-class child and on the weekends, our parents cut grass. And she'd go into this whole thing and never answer the question about the economy. So I'd say, which tax would you cut first? Would you cut income tax, corporate tax, property tax? Which one would you cut first? Pick one. So I try to cut to the chase. And then the chat part with the chat keeping score kind of happened by accident, where I was originally
that was accident.
Score. Yeah. So we have our core group of friends, and we said, well, you guys can give scores too. And then everybody else just started giving scores. And after a couple of weeks or whatever, it just became part of the game. And I stopped giving scores at all. And now I just moderate the whole thing.
Wow. I assumed you thought of that yourself. I gave you too much credit. I'm kidding.
Well, I thought of the original. I thought of some people giving points, but I didn't think of crowdsourcing the whole thing. And last night where we had, hundreds of comments of people giving scores, or we had, I think all the scores were over 7,000 points and whatever. And, so we've been kind of tweaking it as we go along, and we started limiting it to 100 points instead of, people were giving 1 million points and 2 million points. Right. We need a bigger screen to put the scoreboard on if we're going to do, national debt type numbers for the score.
Right. That's great. And then it also gives you the ability to get more people together to actually see libertarians just actually talk back and forth. Because here's the thing I've loved. When people actually hear more liberty-leaning people give more liberty-leaning answers, it doesn't sound as cruel. Sometimes we sound heartless when we speak, right? Sometimes we're so mechanical and logical that we sound almost heartless. Your show makes people feel like, okay, he actually cares. He's not being heartless. He's making sense. I love that. I was trying to become Gary Johnson's VP.
Sure.
I lost that by 31 votes. Not that I'm counting. I'm just saying 31 votes. I'm not counting. You're counting. I'm not counting. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. Okay. 31
Terry's
votes.
putting on the scoreboard right now. It's 31.
There we go. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but one of the things I said is, if we show them our hearts, they'll hear our minds. That was one of the things I was talking about, that libertarians were not doing well. It was one of the reasons why people liked Gary Johnson, is that he wasn't an intellectual. He was of a gut libertarian type guy. He was just a guy who thought, yeah, libertarians, that kind of makes sense. That's kind of who he was. But the average American loved that relative, and the vote total showed they loved that more than other libertarians. They loved it. And I wanted to copy that. And I think your show allows us to be that kind of person. That's one of the reasons why I love it. That's why I always joke around and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, you're amazing on it. And you supported us when we couldn't get big names like you. You were one of the first big names that was I'll totally do it. I'll jump in. Yeah. And, so you'll always have my appreciation for that. But to your point, One of my favorite John Wooden quotes, you know, the famous UCLA coach.
Yep.
He said, before they care, you know, they want to know that you care. And, you know, so I think that personifying people is important. And if we just do the talking head thing and just preach down from the pulpit about why everybody else is wrong and why we're smarter than everybody else, I don't think that that's been successful for us. So I was just trying to throw a curveball and try to show off the people that I admire and appreciate and are my friends. I wanted to show them off to the world in a way that, like, I see them. Like, what are we like when the convention's over and we're just sitting around having a drink, talking? I wanted to show that part of us.